If it weren't for changing hospitals and not having time to tell my husband, if I hadn't known all along that he couldn't have kids, if it weren't for, my revenge wouldn't be going so smoothly. My husband and I agreed before we got married that we wouldn't have children within the first 3 years. We wanted to enjoy our time together as a couple. Unexpectedly, during a routine checkup after we were married, I discovered the truth about my husband Aiden. He was physically incapable of having children. He had azoospermia. I immediately decided to hide his condition from him. After all, he's a man and very sensitive about this kind of thing. After thinking it through, I told him straight up that I didn't want kids for the rest of our lives, that we would love each other forever, and then agree to go to a retirement home together later on. But who knew that 7 years into our marriage, I'd find out he had cheated and had a child with someone else. That's when I had just switched to a new hospital, working the night shift and bustling around the air. Suddenly, someone outside shouted, "Doctor, doctor, please save my child, quickly." Out of pure instinct as a healthcare professional, I rushed out and saw a scene that would forever be etched in my memory. My husband was cradling a boy in his arms, followed by another woman with worry etched all over her face. He looked panicked, then immediately ran towards me when he saw me. "Nurse, please save my son. He's choking." Instinctively, I took the child from him and without thinking much, performed the Heimlich maneuver. Soon, a hard object was dislodged from the child's throat, but still, there were no signs of waking up. His face was turning increasingly pale. My husband, seeing the child was still in critical condition, snatched him back and ran towards the doctors. Then came a series of CPR procedures, and finally, the child stabilized. The moment the child was safe, my husband slumped against the wall as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The woman who had come with him stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. Meanwhile, I was already sobbing uncontrollably. During the commotion, all the necessary information about the child had been filled out. Aiden, 5 years old, mother. Liu father. Aiden, it was confirmed. My husband, Aiden, had cheated during our marriage and the child was already 5 years old. I couldn't even describe my feelings. It was devastating. If it weren't for the fact that I had just switched hospitals and hadn't had time to tell my traveling husband. If they hadn't been so focused on their son's well-being that they didn't notice me with my mask on, how would Aiden have handled this situation today? My colleague noticed I wasn't doing well. She thought I was just exhausted and told me to take a break, missing the chance for Aiden to recognize me. In the break room, I curled up in a corner and cried my heart out. I don't know how long I sobbed until I was exhausted and finally calmed down. The child is 5 years old, which means Aiden cheated on me 2 years into our marriage. If it weren't for fate intervening, they would have kept fooling me, hiding this entire charade for who knows how long. Or maybe they had other plans. That was definitely a possibility. Aiden didn't even have enough money for the bride price when we got married. It was my own savings that I used to give him face in front of my parents. Later, after some guidance from me, Aiden switched companies and his life took off. Otherwise, with his stubborn personality, he would have been stuck at his old job forever. Now, Aiden is doing really well in his career, has a lot of money, and most importantly, I never questioned where his money came from. We both decided not to have kids, so we just lived lavishly. But that doesn't mean I'm okay with him cheating on me and having a child with someone else. This time, Aiden told me he had to go on a business trip for 2 weeks. Well, guess what? He spent the whole week at his mistress's house. And before leaving, he was all lovey-dovey with me, saying how much he loved me and would only ever love me. Talk about sickening. But Aiden probably doesn't know he has a low sperm count. My little white lie actually worked in my favor here. He's walking around believing that he's raising someone else's child. What a joke. Just as I was about to tell Aiden the truth, another voice in my head pulled me back, reminding me of all the good times we had in our 7 years of marriage. If it weren't for discovering his infidelity, Aiden would still be that perfect husband in my eyes. He was always so incredibly good to me, beyond reproach. Every holiday, every birthday, he would surprise me with something amazing. Even when I felt down, he would notice immediately and take care of things. Yeah, he's been deceived. That woman named Liu must have taken a liking to his money and clung on to him relentlessly. He had no choice but to give in. Aiden still loves me. Why else wouldn't he mention divorce? Thinking about this, I immediately perked up. I quickly washed my face and put on some light makeup. I heard that the child was transferred to the ward for observation, so I walked towards it. I had to tell Iden. He's been fooled. That child isn't his. He will definitely come back to me and we can live happily ever after, however. As I stood outside the ward, I overheard, "Honey, why don't you just divorce that spineless woman? This time, our son is lucky to be alive, otherwise, he wouldn't even have a real name, just." The woman cried and complained to Iden, "Baby, don't cry. I'm working on it. The problem is that I can't find any proof of Sophia cheating. If she could just cheat once." What did I hear? Iden actually wants to divorce me. Every time you say that, every time you try to find evidence, you come up empty-handed. What if she never cheats? Will we be stuck with no legal status forever? The woman cried even harder, putting on a pitiful act. It's not that she can't have children. It's that we already agreed years ago that we wouldn't have any. Iden patiently explained to his mistress. Hearing this, I turned and left without looking back. All thoughts of trying to win Iden back vanished. This man doesn't deserve me. He's so afraid of losing his job. The more he fears something, the more I need to make it happen. I, Sophia, will make Iden pay for what he's done. And that woman named Liu Di, I'll show her the terrifying consequences of lying. I went back home and called Iden. "Honey, when are you coming back? I miss you." Act. I was reminding myself that this was acting, otherwise, I couldn't have said those words. "Baby, you missed me? How about I take a leave of absence from work and go back to you early?" His voice still sounded caring, if it were before. I would definitely believe he loved me and everything he said was true, but now, a smirk played on my lips as I told him he couldn't take leave. I said he had worked so hard to get where he was now and should do even better. Iden comforted me a few more times, saying he would surprise me when he got back. I knew what kind of surprise he was talking about. Buying a gift to cheer me up. He used to do this all the time. A necklace, lipstick, or a skincare set would make me happy for ages, but after finding out the truth, I realized how pathetic my previous feelings were. Iden probably bought that cheap mistress something and threw in a little something for me as an afterthought. After hanging up, I packed all of Aiden's gifts into boxes. His things only deserved to be thrown in the trash. After taking care of that, I called my best friend, Zhang Duo, to meet for dinner. Zhang Duo is my childhood bestie. Our families lived next door to each other and we went to the same school, even attending the same university. What's even crazier is she's a pediatrician at the same hospital where I work. "Why did you rush to invite me out?" Zhang Duo looked exhausted. She had been on night shift last night. I got straight to the point and told her everything that happened last night. Zhang Duo's sleepiness vanished instantly. She looked at me with anger and said, "Damn men are all trash." Iden, what a piece of crap. I'll take care of him for you. Growing up together, I knew Zhang Duo's personality well. I quickly soothed Zhang Duo and told her not to rush. The most important thing right now was to find out everything about the mistress, Liu Di. Only by knowing your enemy can you defeat them. Zhang Duo always listened to me. Seeing me like this, her fiery temper calmed down. She told me she would check on Liu Di while making rounds in the afternoon. I also reminded her to do it when Iden wasn't around. After all, Iden knew Zhang Duo well. If he saw her, everything would be exposed, and things would get complicated. Zhang Duo agreed happily and said she would help me get revenge. After parting ways with Zhang Duo, I spent a long time thinking. I could have dealt with this myself. As a nurse, I had opportunities to get close to the mistress. But then I realized that Aiden's son was 5 years old. The mistress probably already knew what I looked like. If things went public, it would be like scaring the snake away from its hole. I didn't have conclusive evidence of Aiden's cheating yet. I couldn't act rashly. Just as I made up my mind to wait for Zhang Duo's news, someone knocked on the door. Who could that be at this time? My apartment was on the 19th floor, and there were security gates downstairs. To get to my floor, you needed a card to use the elevator. Besides neighbors and building management, who else could have come directly to my door? Thinking about it, I opened the door. "Who are you?" To my surprise, standing outside was a handsome guy I had never seen before. He was very young and ridiculously good-looking. "Hello, neighbor. I just moved in downstairs, and there seems to be some water leaking from the bathroom." My apartment building seemed to always have empty units downstairs, so I didn't think much of it. After checking, I found out it wasn't my bathroom that was leaking and told him to check again. The handsome guy took my WeChat contact, saying he could reach me if there was anything else. His name was Sun Kai. He was 5 years younger than me, single, and kept calling me sister. He even said I should introduce him to some girls. I just nodded politely in response. After all, my mind was preoccupied with waiting for Zhang Duo's news and figuring out how to deal with Aiden. Zhang Duo, as always, did not disappoint me. She quickly got a short recording and personally delivered it to my house. Little D, why are you still involved with that man? He's obviously my son, yet you let him call others dad. How can I even think about this? Just go. Don't say those useless things. Aiden will be here soon, and if he sees this, it'll be a problem. I'm not leaving. Eddie is my son, and I want to take care of him here. You're useless. With your measly 3,000 yuan salary per month, how can you possibly take care of your son? Wait until you can earn 30,000 yuans, and I promise he will recognize you as his father. Hearing this, Zhang Duo looked at me with triumph. Sophia, my move was a success. I ignored Zhang Duo. My entire focus was on the recording. This recording was from Zhang Duo. She heard the argument while checking rooms before entering the ward. She quickly and cleverly recorded it. To be honest, after hearing this, I felt a surge of anger inside. Aiden never expected that the son he raised wasn't his, and the child's biological father had been playing the role of the mistress all along. At that moment, someone knocked on the door again. It was the new handsome guy who moved in. He came to borrow soy sauce this time. As soon as he entered, he saw Zhang Duo in the house and immediately said with exaggeration, "Sister, it's so unfair. Why are your friends all so beautiful? Can I have two beautiful sisters at once?" I have to say, the new neighbor's PR skills were not ordinary. Under his infectious flattery, Zhang Duo quickly kept him for lunch at my place. Seeing my unwillingness, Zhang Duo volunteered to buy groceries and cook, and so, the new handsome guy was left behind by Zhang Duo, and the three of us drank happily until we passed out. Then came the sudden visit from my mother-in-law. She somehow got a hold of the key, opened the door, and saw the three of us lying on the floor. My mother-in-law immediately became furious, yelling as she pulled me up from the floor, "Sophia, you're actually cheating with men at home." My mother-in-law's voice was already high-pitched, but with her skyrocketing anger, it almost blew the roof off. Her shout took away most of my drunkenness and woke Zhang Duo up. "Mom," I hurriedly straightened my clothes and smoothed my hair before saying, "How did you get here?" My mother-in-law lives in the county town and doesn't come over once every 6 months. She wouldn't visit unless something major happened. How did I get here? Did I not come to see you cheating with men? My mother-in-law pointed at me, her face flushed red with anger. I didn't. I weakly explained, thinking how unlucky I was that she caught us red-handed. Thankfully, Zhang Duo was there. My best friend quickly came to my rescue, explaining the situation. At this time, Sun Kai also woke up, rubbing his eyes. "Sister, what happened? Who is she?" I glared at him angrily. "This guy is so clueless. He should go home immediately and stay out of this mess. You ask her who I am. Go on, ask her." My mother-in-law shouted angrily at Sun Kai. Oh my god, I really didn't expect Sun Kai to be so insensitive. He directly retorted, "Old lady, can you be more polite? How do you speak to my sister?" Sun Kai's words directly ignited the fire in my mother-in-law's anger, and they almost came to blows. My mother-in-law threatened to call the police while also calling her son. It was Aiden's arrival that finally ended the whole drama. By then, Zhang Duo and I were even more embarrassed because of trying to break up the fight. We sat on the couch together, my mother-in-law on one end, and Aiden in a chair opposite us. Sun Kai, as soon as Aiden returned, was sent home by me. Two big men fighting could easily get out of hand and hurt someone. Aiden looked at me with a dark face, and I, like someone who had done something wrong, hung my head low. Today's events were beyond my expectations. First, I didn't expect Sun Kai to be drunk at my place. Second, I didn't expect my mother-in-law to come. Third, and most importantly, this whole mess happening right when I found out about Aiden's infidelity was incredibly careless of me. "Sophia, I want an explanation," Aiden demanded. I mumbled under my breath, "What's there to explain? It was just a drink, son. You didn't see what I saw when I came in. She was sleeping with that boy's arm around her. What kind of wife would do that? All these years she couldn't give me children, and I didn't say anything. But this time, son, I absolutely won't allow our family to have a daughter-in-law like this." My mother-in-law's words shook me to my core. She was pushing her son to divorce me. After finding out about Aiden's infidelity, I definitely wanted a divorce from him, but it shouldn't be his call. My plans were completely disrupted overnight, and I panicked, instinctively clutching Zhang Duo's hand. Zhang Duo spoke up, Aiden, your mother came in and started yelling. Why don't you say anything? How can you blame Sophia? Her words ignited Aiden like a match. He was so angry he almost smashed the house. My mother-in-law even threatened Aiden, saying that if he didn't divorce me, she would jump off the balcony. Things were at a breaking point. I was left with no choice but to fight back. Aiden, weren't you on a business trip? How did your mother get you back so quickly? I calmed down and pointed out Aiden's inconsistency. I knew deep down he wasn't on a business trip. It was just an excuse now. I wanted to see how he would explain himself. I came back early because my mother called me. It's funny, if I hadn't come back, who knows what you might have done to her. He defended himself well, then how do you explain this? I suddenly threw some photos at him. All of Aiden holding a child in the emergency room that night. Aiden, you were cheating on me and have a 5-year-old son, right? I looked at him triumphantly, unexpectedly. Aiden remained calm. He just had a sinister look that made me shiver. Sophia, is it really my son? DNA tests are needed to confirm that. Can't I just hold a child and be labeled his father? I quickly said, well then, do the DNA test with him immediately. To my surprise, Aiden agreed. Something was fishy. When we rushed to the hospital to confront them, the woman and the child were gone. They had vanished without a trace. Panic surged through me. This can't be true. What happened to them? If I couldn't produce any evidence of his infidelity by this point, I would end up divorced and lose everything. However, after searching every corner of the hospital, we found no trace of Liu Di and her son. They had disappeared like ghosts. Later, Aiden left with a single sentence, just wait for the lawyer's notice. He and his mother left. Afterward, I cried my heart out but knew what was coming was inevitable. The divorce would happen. But I wouldn't get anything good out of it. I took a few days off work to try and calm down. I didn't even tell my parents about any of this. First, I was afraid they would worry. Second, they never really liked Aiden anyway. And I was afraid they would say something hurtful that would just make me feel worse. Aiden and his mother came back with a lawyer soon after. Sophia, let's just end things amicably. You were in the wrong, so I'll give you 10,000 as a symbolic gesture. And we can get divorced. I was furious when I heard that. Our current house is worth well over $1 million, plus Aiden's car is worth $500,000, and there's still his bank account with a couple of million in it altogether. He wanted to offer me 10,000 and call it quits. Dream on. Even though I messed things up. The fact that Aiden cheated was undeniable. I pulled out the recording Zhang Duo had gotten from the hospital and sneered. Aiden, you probably don't know this, but that child isn't yours at all. I waited for Aiden to explode with anger. He must be furious about raising someone else's child for years. But surprisingly, after listening to the recording, Aiden just smiled softly. Sophia, I think you've gone crazy. He didn't seem fazed at all. It was so unexpected. Seeing that my tactic hadn't worked, I almost decided to use my trump card and reveal his infertility, no matter what. That child wasn't his, but a voice inside me told me to hold back. I couldn't explain it, but something stopped me. Tears streamed down my pale cheeks. In the past, whenever I cried, Aiden would always comfort me. I wanted to try that again, as expected. When he saw me crying, Aiden softened his tone and let me make demands, as long as they weren't unreasonable. Aiden, our wedding anniversary is in a month. Can we wait until after that day to get divorced? His mother immediately became agitated. She urged Aiden to kick me out as soon as possible, saying that their family didn't need a hen that couldn't lay eggs, nor a mistress who brought shame upon them. I looked at Aiden with sorrowful eyes, and he finally agreed to wait another month. Later on, my friend Zhang Duo called me stupid for doing this. She said that I should just get divorced from him and be done with it. I told her that if I divorced him now, I would be too passive and wouldn't get anything. Zhang Duo insisted that even if he had to fight him for money, she still thought I should leave. I just laughed it off. During the month-long wait before the divorce, I didn't stay at home. I didn't care if Aiden went back or not. I took a month of leave from the hospital and didn't even tell Zhang Duo where I was going. In fact, the day after Aiden came with his lawyer, I took action. I hired a very well-known private investigator in the city. I paid him a large sum to investigate Aiden as quickly as possible. I suspected it. The day after Sun Kai showed up at my house, I started to suspect something was wrong. Plus, Sun Kai getting drunk and acting strange in my house that day just made things more suspicious. because that day at the hospital, I clearly heard Aiden talking about finding evidence of me cheating on him and trying to get someone to seduce me, Sun Kai appearing after that. With the timing lining up perfectly, my alcohol tolerance is well known. There's no way someone who can't handle a liter of white liquor would get drunk after just a few drinks. The chances are Sun Kai tampered with the alcohol that day then. Liu Di and his mother disappearing completely broke the chain of evidence, making things even more eerie. I've always been the kind of person who takes losses passively, but I have to know what's going on. I can't let Aiden get away with cheating after all this. What I didn't expect was that the truth would reveal the ugliness of human nature. That day, the private investigator met me and gave me all the investigation files. I froze, my mind reeling. Is any of this true? I asked in disbelief. Miss AI, don't doubt my professionalism. I've seen things more twisted than this plot, so this is nothing. He replied casually, staring at the private investigator, trying to find something in his face that would tell me otherwise, but ultimately, I believed everything he investigated. I didn't tell anyone about hiring a private investigator, not even my best friend Zhang Duo. For weeks, I ignored her calls except for those from my parents, so the private investigator in front of me was reliable. I shouldn't have doubted his findings, even if the files showed that my best friend, the person who grew up alongside me, Zhang Duo, had cheated on my husband Aiden. No wonder Aiden could remain so calm. No wonder Liu Di and his mother disappeared. It's so ironic. What in this world is truly real? Who should I believe anymore? But after all that drama, I've calmed down a lot now. I paid the private investigator another 100,000 to help me with something else. Time flew by our wedding anniversary. I had already talked to Aiden about an amicable separation. I wanted to have a good send-off for our marriage and invited all his friends and colleagues. At first, Aiden didn't agree, but I pleaded with him, putting myself down as much as possible. And finally he agreed. The wedding anniversary was held at the same hotel where we got married. I dressed up beautifully and went alone. Oh, and I also invited my best friend, Zhang Duo. The moment she answered the phone, she was frantic, asking me why I disappeared and telling me that when a man cheats, you show. On the other end of the line, I laughed coldly, not engaging with her on that point, but inviting her to my wedding anniversary celebration. Zhang Duo tried to persuade me not to hold any kind of anniversary event, but seeing that she couldn't change my mind, she finally agreed to come. I arrived at the hotel before Aiden. I also invited some of my colleagues from the hospital, including the director. They all had no idea what was going on, so they were all offering congratulations when we met. Aiden came, and his eyes looked unnatural. I even saw a hint of guilt on his face. Sophia. Don't say anything, Aiden. I know everything. After saying that, I walked toward the podium, took the microphone from the host, and motioned for Aiden to come up. Everyone, today marks my 7th wedding anniversary with Aiden. I've been waiting for this day for too long, and there are so many things I want to say, but first, I want to give my husband, Aiden, a big gift. As soon as I finished speaking, a waiter came over carrying a tray. What is this? Aiden looked confused, asking about the tray covered with a delicate stainless steel lid. I smiled and gestured for the waiter to open the tray. Revealed on the tray was a piece of paper. Aiden, take a look. This is my first gift for you. Aiden looked at me, then at the paper on the tray, and slowly picked it up. Quickly, he threw the paper in disbelief. Impossible. This can't be true. Everyone was confused, only seeing Aiden's emotions instantly escalate. I quickly took the paper back. Everyone, you must be curious about what's written on this paper. I held up the paper and said, you see, the paper is slightly yellowed, which means it's been around for years. This is a medical report from 7 years ago, and it says. Before I could finish reading, Aiden painfully stopped me. No, Sophia, please don't. Seeing this, I directly said, okay, since Aiden doesn't want me to read it, then let the waiter give everyone a photocopy. As soon as I finished speaking, the waiters quickly began distributing the copies. In a short while, various sounds filled the banquet hall. Everyone looked at Aiden with much more complex expressions. I've cleared up a mystery gift, so next, I'll show you the second gift. After saying that, the large screen behind me started playing a video. The video showed Aiden playing with a child who he had with Liu Di, eating out together, and spending time together at home. Money can buy anything. Even private investigators can get footage of them at home. The boy in the video is named Eddie. His mother is Liu Di, and his father is. I dragged out my words and pointed at Aiden. Him, my husband, Aiden. Gasps. Everyone except me was dumbfounded. Aiden's face was pale, and I noticed Zhang Duo's expression very carefully. It could be described as a mixture of emotions. Before everyone could recover from the shock of the first two gifts, I presented a third one. It was still a video, but this time the protagonist was a different woman. Zhang Duo. The entire video showed Aiden on dates with Zhang Duo. Incredibly embarrassing. There were several colleagues from the hospital present, including the director. Zhang Duo looked incredibly angry under their gaze. She pointed at me and shouted, "Sophia, you betrayed me. You are inhuman." Seeing her like this, I shook my head regretfully. Zhang Duo, I treated you as a good friend, and I was completely open with you, but you shamelessly slept with my husband. You're truly despicable. I paused for a moment and continued. Originally, I also had a gift prepared for you, but when I hesitated about whether to reveal it in front of everyone, you just made the decision for me. After saying that, I winked at a waiter nearby. Soon, every person present received several photos, including Aiden. The photos all showed a man and woman together. The woman was naturally Zhang Duo, but the man was not Zhang Hao. It was Sun Kai. At this point, all except the last gift had been revealed. I smiled at their reactions. This feeling was truly amazing. The first to react was Aiden. He looked at me in pain. "Sophia, is all of this true?" I raised an eyebrow. "It's all true." That? Aiden swallowed nervously, his face filled with distress. "Is the infertility also true?" I nodded lightly. "Ah." Aiden clutched his head in pain. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Why? I didn't tell you because I wanted what was best for you. Didn't want you to lose your manhood. But how did you treat me? You not only cheated, but also schemed and seduced someone else to take all my assets while married. You don't deserve to be a man." After saying this, I let out a sigh of relief. It felt good to finally express it. He really didn't deserve it. In my relentless accusations, Aiden froze in place, completely unable to respond. Then, Zhang Duo suddenly rushed towards me, grabbing my neck with both hands. "I'm going to kill you. You ruined me. I'm going to kill you." She looked like a lunatic. I countered with a shoulder throw, sending Zhang Duo crashing to the ground. "Zhang Duo, I trusted you so much, yet you seduced my husband. Even now, you show no remorse. Fine, then I won't give you any face either." I pulled out another medical report. This is a syphilis test report, and the person tested is named Sun Kai. As soon as these words left my mouth, Zhang Duo was stunned speechless. Sun Kai is the man in the photos with Zhang Duo. He's a bartender. Besides being handsome, he has a terrible private life. Zhang Duo seduced him for his looks and also craved Aiden's money. She played around between these two men, so Aiden also contracted this disease, as well as Liu Di, that other woman. You both have it. As soon as she said this, I pointed to her with the test report. "Well, actually, I don't. For the past 6 months, the times Aiden and I were truly together were limited. He had 2 other women outside of our marriage, and by the time he came home, he was too exhausted to even deal with me. 6 months ago, I contracted a genital chlamydia infection. The doctor said that it's best not to have sex until it's treated or to use protection every time. Because of this, I dodged a bullet. Looking back, I think even God wanted to help me. Actually, ever since Sun Kai and Zhang Duo both got drunk in my house, I suspected something was wrong. The private investigator helped me solve all the questions. Sun Kai's earlier medical checkup reports were also obtained by the private investigator. Thinking about it now, it's terrifying. What if I had been tricked by Sun Kai? Now I would be infected too. There is one more thing. Zhang Duo was not only with Aiden, but she was also the lover of our hospital director, and the director was present today. I believe he must hate Zhang Duo right now, but those things aren't my concern anymore. I got my revenge. Aiden knows he wore a green hat and will lose the right to be a father for the rest of his life. My revenge plan was successful on our wedding anniversary. It was so satisfying. Then I sued Aiden for divorce. To my surprise, he didn't resist. He gave me everything I wanted, practically stripped himself bare. This made me feel a little soft. He still had some decency as a man. 7 years of marriage. I won't say I wasn't heartbroken. I loved him, took care of everything for him. But in return, he cheated and schemed against me. After all this happened, Aiden's image collapsed. He couldn't even work at his company anymore, losing his job. Zhang Duo's ending was even worse. Just as I expected, after going back to the hospital, the director went after her. She not only lost her medical license but also got beaten up, fracturing several bones. She didn't even dare to call the police. She knew if she did, she might be in real danger. The only regret is Liu Di. She was the only legitimate third party in my marriage with Aiden. I heard she ran away, disappearing with her child. The house Aiden bought for her was sold at a low price overnight. The only one who wasn't affected by all this was probably her. Oh, wait, she will also catch that disease. But it wasn't as satisfying as I imagined. My life returned to normal, to ensure a quiet work and personal life. I changed hospitals. I thought my life would just go on like this, never wanting to find another man again. But then, I received a cash transfer of 10,000 from Aiden's account. What was he trying to do? We had already divided all our marital assets after the divorce. He had nothing left, so why would he give me 10,000 now? I couldn't reach him by phone. A sense of unease washed over me. As expected, my former mother-in-law contacted me. She told me Aiden was arrested and was currently in the hospital, being arrested and still in the hospital. What could that mean? My former mother-in-law looked distraught, saying, "Sophia, Mom is sorry for you." "I'm so sorry. Something happened to Aiden. I can't live anymore either. Mom wants to apologize to you before giving you Aiden's letter and then leaving. Where are you going?" I didn't have a father-in-law. Aiden's dad passed away long ago. They were each other's only family. If something happened to him, his mother wouldn't be so distraught, would she? I managed to keep my former mother-in-law from leaving. After 7 years as mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, I couldn't just turn into a heartless person. In the letter, Aiden apologized profusely. It was his last will and testament. It was clear he didn't want to live anymore, but fate gave him another chance. Liu Di and her child didn't die, but they were seriously injured. I hired a lawyer for Aiden with my money. He had left some final wishes, and I didn't want to completely sever ties with him. Plus, Liu Di had deceived Aiden first. He was only sentenced to 11 years. After all this, I moved my former mother-in-law into the house where Aiden and I used to live and gave her 2,000 a month for living expenses. I don't know why I did these things. Maybe it was just because I had a soft heart. Next month, I can visit Aiden. My former mother-in-law said she was afraid of the emotional stress and wanted to leave but was also scared to. To comfort her, I told her I would visit Aiden and save some money for him. I can't help but wonder if what I've done is right or wrong.